Hello, you amazing friends. I'm honoured to be with the legendary Jonathon Naef and Perpetua Kish from Balanced Family Law. How are you today, Perpetua? We'll open with you.
Oh, I'm really well, Ed. Good to see you. All the better for seeing you on this dreary Canberra day in lockdown.
I know, I feel for you guys in Canberra, and we've got the handsome and powerful Jonathan Naeth with us. How are you today, Jonathan?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good to be here.
I just want to open it up for you guys. We're doing this interview, and thank you again for your time. I know you're two very successful and busy solicitors. We're doing this interview early September. You're in a heavy lockdown in Canberra, I understand.
That's right. This is our first, or probably technically second real taste of lockdown life. Last year, we had a brief dalliance with it. I think we were in lockdown for 6 weeks, right, Jono? And then we had months and months and months, or over a year, of business or close to business as usual. So Jono and I were actually smirking about being, not recklessly indifferent, but like, oh yeah, no changes here. We're all good in our Canberra bubble. And then what happened, Jono?
Yeah, we're very comfortable in going, we've been really good here in the ACT. Like it's not gonna be an issue here. Like felt bad for everyone in Sydney and Melbourne who was in lockdown, but we're like, we're fine. And then lockdown hit and it was straight away very heavy lockdowns. Everyone get home, don't leave.
Yeah.
God. And I was going to say, I mean, you two are massive leaders in the space of family law. This is obviously a very complex question I'm asking, but how has this affected your clients and divorce and families in the world that you guys live and work in every day?
It's another stressor that clients who are already in a difficult situation are having to deal with. So we are talking with clients who on many occasions are forced to cohabit with their partner, where in other circumstances they may have been able to leave the house or even get out more often, so they're not in each other's space around the clock. So certainly seeing clients really impacted by that, very stressed, and really relying on us to give them some good guidance and help them set some boundaries in those type of situations.
Yeah, exactly. And even when it comes to people who are at the stage where they've already reached an agreement, there's a lot more working out the logistics of how we're going to implement that agreement now that there's restrictions on movement. And, if people are going to be selling a house, can they have auctions? Can they have open homes? If they can, how are they going to do it? When's it going to be scheduled? If someone needs to move out, can they get the removalists to come in and do that? How do we have to work within what the removalists can and can't do? So there's the legal aspect that still exists, but there's a lot more of a practical aspect that we have to deal with as well about how we're going to implement all of these arrangements that we're documenting and whether or not it's even possible at this stage, or they have to maybe like we say, cohabitate for a little bit longer until we get a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah, our project management skills are put into high gear. So as Jono said, it's not just about doling out the legal advice. It's about helping them plan for potentially a longer period of lockdown and work out what they can do in that situation to make things a little easier.
Wow. This is actually freaking me out because years before I met the legendary Lassie and married her, I was in a long-term relationship that went belly up. And I remember, and like I'm sure you guys see every day, even though we had split up, we're still under the same roof, but I was allowed to get out as much as I could, right? But it must be so hard. You've split up with someone, you're done, and you can't escape to have a coffee anymore. You're stuck at home all the time. And I can barely imagine the level of stress intensity these poor people are under.
Yeah, absolutely, Ed. So what's really important now is helping clients to understand what's in their control. What's happening with this latest COVID lockdown is outside of their control. So it's working with them to manage what small things they can do to make that experience easier for them. You're not going to be able to change the fact that your ex might be in the room next to you, but what you can do is work on how you might respond or react to your ex when they're doing something that drives you up the wall.
Jonathon?
Yeah, exactly. It's also helping clients through with the conflict management for foreseeing, okay, is there going to be something that because you've engaged us to assist you through this process, or even prior to that, before they know about that, are there some things that are going to arise that are going to cause some conflict between the two of you, and how can we assist you to manage that or prepare for that, so the conflict that may happen isn't going to be as bad as it might otherwise have been.
And also, I think not viewing the ex as their opponent. One thing that both parties have in common is they're both dealing with this, excuse my French, shitty situation where they're both in letdown. So rather than fight each other, perhaps look at what the problem is that they're both facing and put their energy into, okay, we're in this difficult situation. How do we get through it together? We don't want to be together, but it is the situation we find ourselves in. But let's fight the problem, not ourselves.
Wow.
Each other.
I was going to ask you, and I was actually thinking about this last night for this interview, and I thought I'll ask the elephant in the room question. I noticed, Peppy, you're an elephant in the room, talk about character, and so are you, Jono. But I want to ask this question. You have two people that absolutely can't control themselves and are just at each other's throats. I'm sure you see this about 50 million times a day, right? How do you, I get if one person's relaxing, the other one's warlike, you can manage it. But how do you get two people that are very warlike to calm down? What are some of your tips and tricks to get those people to relax, to get them to collaborate and work together reasonably?
Well, first of all, we have to set some boundaries. So in this lockdown situation, we can't resolve everything overnight. We can't just say, okay, this is what your property settlement will be. There's so many issues at play. So it's about setting some ground rules, some boundaries, so that you know what's appropriate, what isn't, what are the best ways to communicate, times, places, all those types of things. Because when people have secure boundaries, they feel safer and they feel less, I guess, out of control. They're aware of what is expected of them. They are likely to be more accountable and take responsibility for their actions. So I guess it's about saying, not literally, but coming in and drawing that line in the sand. This is you on one side, this is the other person on the other side. We can't do anything about the fact that you're both in that same space, but recognize that each of you are entitled to your own space, you're entitled to your own opinion and your own feelings about things. But as you have those entitlements, so does the other.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And also, I guess, going back to what Peggy was talking about before, being clear about what it is that you can and can't control. So you can control the way that you respond to your ex, but you can't control how they're going to respond to you. So what ways can we, even if it is a, controversial or not, or something that's going to happen that's going to upset the other person, what's the best way that we can communicate that with them so that it lessens the conflict as much as possible? Because as Peppy says all the time, conflict is inevitable, but the way that we react to it and determining what we can and can't control will make that a lot a better situation.
Yeah. And as lawyers, we have to role model good behaviours ourselves. So luckily for us, the other parties with some of the clients that we're working with have engaged lawyers that have been quite easy to work with. And what we'll do as lawyers is I'll say to my client, I'm going to call this lawyer. I'm not going to send a letter and read them the riot act about everything that their client is doing that's upsetting you. I'm going to have a conversation with them and we'll talk about this boundary setting. We'll talk about putting some ground rules and we'll put together a manageable and appropriate to-do list for the next couple of weeks or even couple of days if that's all the client can manage. So if the clients can see the lawyers playing nice together, being respectful, being solutions focused, that sets a good tone for the correspondence between the clients directly.
That's one thing I've got to say I love about you two in the firm that you guys run, in that I know a lot of lawyers and a lot of lawyers are wonderful like yourselves and a lot of lawyers aren't so wonderful. Now, I was going to ask you the next elephant in the room question. when you're dealing with a lawyer that is over militant, had too much coffee, they've watched Perry Mason or too many TV shows too much, and they think it's a murder trial and they think we have felonies in Australia. How do you handle lawyers that have just gone crazy with power? How do you calm those people down and have a reasonable conversation?
Well, Jono and I often have to sort of debrief and vent and say things that we would never, ever say in this space.
Yes,
But, we're
exactly.
only human and things do get to us. But no, Ed, what we do with lawyers like that, it comes down to role modeling again and being really consistent in our approach. So we talk from a playbook that is one of kindness, one of collaboration and teamwork. We have to be really consistent in that approach. And if we do get a difficult, militant, combative lawyer on the other side, we can't just mirror that behavior. That will only escalate matters. We have to remain true to our authentic selves, remain true to the principles of balanced family law, which is to act in a non-combative, collaborative, friendly and kind way. And hope that the other lawyer will see, okay, what's going on here? And, we did actually have a matter like this, or we do have a matter like this. And
I bet you've had hundreds of matters like this. I bet you're
yes,
like the normal people in the room dealing with.
Yeah.
What do I do?
And, Jono and I and our other lawyer, Claire, we've just been venting about this lawyer, and then had a great conversation with her. And you realize, maybe it's not as bad as it is. And at the end of the day, everybody's in a stressful situation. And it's just about finding the best way to communicate with people. And often it's by picking up the phone. I always make sure, like you, Ed, that I have a smile on my face when I'm talking, because then that tends to have a real impact on the person I'm speaking with, and from a strategic standpoint, if I'm being really nice and they're still being horrible and all that correspondence ends up in court, who's going to look like the fool?
Yeah, the magistrate will be instantly on your side. And Jono, what do you think? I mean, you're a pretty nice, mild-mannered gentleman, but how do you handle extreme situations where you're dealing with someone who's been watching too much CSI?
Yeah. Look, I guess as Peppy said, and going back to the what you can and can't control aspect is, we get these letters all the time where usually it's because it's just the way that things have always been done, and the way, there's just precedents within firms that say, okay, the standard response is this, and at the bottom of it is a threat saying, if you don't respond within 14 days, then we're going to commence proceedings.
Yeah.
And it's just looking at that. Us as lawyers tend to see that and go, okay, it's just lawyers speak.
Yeah, you just filter it out. It's like the Apple terms and conditions. You're just whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But to the clients, they see that and they go, oh my God. And then that puts them in a really defensive position as well. So it's being able to sift through the crap that's in the letter and say, okay, well, this is what they're saying if we remove all of the combative, hostile comments. And then let's respond the same way that we've always responded. Let's provide solutions. Okay, they've asked for this. Let's provide it, all that sort of stuff, so that we're not the one, as Peppy says, as the one seen to be difficult. We're remaining the same. Fortunately, there's been, in the last, just over a week, there's a new court that exists for family law, the Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia.
So I heard about that.
It's a merger of the two previous courts. And with the new court has come some new rules, and there's a really big focus on not being hostile and being solutions focused, and thinking about who the end person is that's going to read the correspondence that you're sending. Whilst we address the letter to the lawyer then passes on the letter to their client, and they're the one who has to action or provide instructions or receive advice on what we've sent. So thinking about the end person who's receiving that letter, what impact is the way that I'm writing this going to have on them? How are they going to respond? How can I word this in such a way so that when it does get to them, it's not shown, even if it is something that we've said, look, we need you to do this, or, you have been difficult to date, please stop. How can we say that in a way that's not going to be seen as hostile or combative, and saying, hey, whilst we're here acting for person A, our goal is for both of you to be able to move on and to be okay at the end of this. We're not here to try and make things more difficult than they need to be. Work with us because we want to work with you, not against you.
Incredible. I got to say, I love where you amazing winners are going. And this thought just come to me as well. I imagine this happened a few times. Do you have two people that start going through the divorce process and all of a sudden they said, guess what, guys? We decided to get back together. Does that happen to you guys much?
It doesn't happen often because usually by the time that you're at the stage where you've got a lawyer or you've gone to see a lawyer, you're fairly certain that this is what you want to do. But we have had a couple. There was one matter where it was in court and there were final orders made for parenting arrangements, and then we found out that they got back together and then they ended up splitting up again, and then we had to go through the process again. So there was one, but then there was another one where earlier this year where they were separated, but they still got along really well. And I had to refrain from sitting there saying, why are you separated?
You're not allowed to say that.
And
you're not allowed to say that.
Yeah. And then in the end, at the end, they sort of said, oh, look, like this is what we want to do now, except us reconciling is not off the table. What happens then? And then talking through, okay, well, if that is what happened, because you've gone through this property settlement, this is what it means. But it's not uncommon that people separate and then get back together. You know, you hear stories of people who get divorced and then get married again and all that sort of thing. So it's just working with the people and working out what their goals and interests are. And if that is that they eventually end up back together, well, then good for them.
Legendary. Now, I want to ask you, where do you see everything going? Like, I mean, we're going to have lockdowns for the next few years. We've got all these changes in terms of, you know, law and the family space you practice in. What are the trends and where is this all going? Peppy.
Okay, so I was actually writing something last night about the next normal, which takes into account pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, much like one of those defining events such as, you know, September 11 or, you know, pre-war.
Yeah. It's clearly a divisional line, pre-virus and post-virus.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think moving forward, people are having to navigate a world that is ever-changing. Change is the new constant, and it does impact relationships in the sense that we parrot to all of our clients, your relationship isn't over yet. And if you have children, it won't be over for a very long time. Your relationship is actually changing from one of being together to one as, you know, co-parents or separating spouses who are still connected financially and have to do a few things to reach the end of that. Sometimes it takes longer than they think it will. So I think it's about the court systems, lawyers, clients going through the divorce process is recognizing that change is a constant and we all need to navigate change and be ready to pivot, flip, adapt, leverage those changes in order to thrive, really.
Oh, well said.
Yeah, exactly. And then I guess on the other end, when it comes to things like documenting agreements, which we do a lot of, is having the foresight when documenting the agreement, saying, okay, for example, with parenting arrangements, there's a lot of cases at the moment where people live on those border cities, like we do in Canberra. I live in Queanbeyan, which is in New South Wales. Peppy lives in the ACT. We've got lots of families where they may live in Queanbeyan or the ACT. There's like the Coolangatta, Tweeds Heads sort of area up in Queensland, Albury, Wodonga. You know, having arrangements or crafting agreements that consider, okay, with all this potential change or these arrangements that might change between states, or even if we're in the same state, whatever lockdowns, how are we going to navigate that? What can we do now to sort of foresee what may happen, so that if there is something that changes what our original agreement is, that it's not going to result in lots of conflict and everything happening at that stage. We can try and deal with that now and go, okay, well, if this happens, then this is what the arrangements are.
Oh, brilliant. Love it. Great answers, friends. I know you're busy. Thank you for all your time. I want to go to the closing thoughts. And I just want to hear your final words and what you want to impart on our wonderful viewers across the world. Peppy, what are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are to anybody thinking about divorce, for lawyers who work in this space or any other professional that work in this space, is think about how you're framing conversations around divorce. So remember, it's very easy to say, oh, divorce is very difficult. Divorce is, really, hard. But think about how you can flip it to imbue, I guess, a more positive vibe. So, divorce is an opportunity for growth. Divorce is a fresh start, the first day of the rest of your life. So let's think about what we can all do as members of a community to support people going through divorce, so it doesn't have to be as hard.
Wow. Jono?
Great. Echoing all of that, and just, I guess, focusing on the positives in things as Peppy's gone through, and focusing on, like we've talked about, what you can and can't control, what it is that you're wanting to achieve at the end. Try to sort of think long term. Where do you want to be in 12 months, 5 years, 10 years time? And use that as the focus to any conflict or a separation, and not focus on the now, because if we focus on the now, we might lose sight of where the end goal is. And that, if we have the end goal, then we can sort of tailor and work with people to get there.
Oh, brilliant. Well said. Everyone, thank you so much. And again, can everyone connect with you winners via LinkedIn as a starting point?
Yeah.
Thanks
definitely.
so much for having us, Ed. It's been such a fun chat.